pro-abortion Christians and conservatives, as well as liberals, leftists, and progressives, are still freaking out today about the idea that states are going to be able to make laws against abortion going forward, which is, by the way, a wonderful thing, just not good enough. I mean, states should. I mean, it just should never come into question whether a state is going to make a law about banning the murder of children. Right? That just should never even be a question. Of course, like that's a given. If any law, if anything at all is illegal in this country, it should be murdering children. Right? Like that seems to be like a good baseline. Anyway, so we're going to continue our discussion on this today, as we really are going to have shows about it all week long. Today we're going to talk. We're going to play a few clips of some people. One, Lisa Sharon Harper, who says that no, listen, it's abortion doesn't target black communities. She's a black woman. I think a black pastor, if I'm not mistaken. We're going to talk about people who say that if it was really all about saving babies, then we would just give away free stuff, free diapers and free formula and free all this other stuff to women who need help, which we do. And we're going to talk about whether or not the financial side of things is a good excuse for murdering children. Let's talk before we ask, is a woman in poverty a good excuse for, does that give her an excuse to murder her child? Let's ask, is it really a child? Jonathan, for that, is our expert. You don't need an expert. Here's the thing. You don't need an expert.
I'm not a biologist.
How would you respond there, Jonathan?
But it is scientifically, yes, it is a child. My question is, if you're going to use that argument with the whole, poverty thing, what about a woman who has like 6 kids? Can she kill her 10-year-old because she's in poverty? Can she kill her 5-year-old? Where does it stop? You're killing kids because you're in poverty. Why wait till, why not realize, oh, well, I wasn't in poverty when I had the first 4, so it's fine, but now I am, so now I can kill them, right?
Yeah. Well,
where's the line drawn? This is horrible.
You make a great point, because here's the thing. And let me just back up for a split second here and just remind everybody, if this is the first time watching Point of View, this is the show where we're unashamed to look at political, social, cultural, and even theological issues from a biblical worldview. We do that because Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead. If you don't believe that, you're not a Christian, right? And we think you should be a Christian. We think you should believe that. But if you don't, then you're not a Christian. If you do, then as a Christian, you say you're a Christian, then you should believe the Bible is true, because Jesus said the Bible is true, and he proved that he knew what he was talking about when he rose from the dead. So when we're looking at things, we're looking at things from a biblical perspective. Dr. Lisa Sharon Harper, I'm just trying to get her name right here, says that she believes in the resurrection of Christ, at least. I mean, she would have to, because she says she's a Christian. And yet she's going to try to present arguments for murdering children, even though Luke chapter 1 has Jesus and John the Baptist as human beings alive in the womb before they're born. Psalm 139 talks about David alive in the womb before he's born. Jeremiah chapter 1 talks about Jeremiah alive in the womb. Job talks about, in Job chapter 3, Job actually says, hey, I wish I had died in the womb, because then I would be just like all the other kings and princes who ever lived. I'd just be at peace. Meaning he's talking about the equivalence of a human life in the womb with a human life outside of the womb. They're the same, see? And we could go on and on. The point is that biblically speaking, there's no question this is a life in the womb. But you don't even need that, because biology says it's human. It's not a cat. It's not a dog. Biology says it's certainly alive. Life begins at conception. There's no question about that. And the only question is, because it's not viable, because it can't live on its own, and because at certain stages there's less brain activity, and because it doesn't look like a human at certain stages, then that makes it less valuable. That makes it a daughter, a woman, a girl in the womb less valuable than the girl outside of the womb. I say that's nonsense. The way you look doesn't determine your value. The amount of brain function you have does not determine your value. and the amount of dependence you have on others to support your life does not determine your value. Otherwise,
You know,
yeah.
feminists should be happy about that because the way they look and their dependence they have on other people doesn't determine their humanity, thankfully.
Ouch.
So,
Ouch. I
so
didn't say that. That
honestly,
was Jonathan. Get mad at
you
him for
might
that one.
you might want to before you make that argument, let's take a look in the mirror. I mean, come on.
Yeah. Okay. So, but it is true though that Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, pro eugenics, they wanted to control the black population. Is exactly what Margaret Sanger set out to do when she created the Planned Parenthood. Here is a quote unquote Christian claiming no, abortion it just doesn't target the black community at all.
What is the number one myth about this issue, about the issue of abortion, reproductive justice, that you wish could be dispelled, that you want people to know is a myth and not reality? And whoever would like to start, go. Okay, I'll go. Okay, and then you can follow if you get inspired. Okay, so the number one myth that I want to dispel is that I hear so many times, I hear people come to me and say, you should be, solidly pro-life. Well, I want you to know I am for life, but I am for life from the mind of God through conception all the way to death. But the myth is that it is black baby.
Okay, wait. Before we get to that, what did she just say? Can you interpret? She says, I'm for life from the mind of God through conception all the way to death, which happens right after conception in abortion. What, you just said that life begins before conception in the mind of God.
That's
but
what
you're
I heard.
for
Yeah.
abortion? What am I missing here? And this is the thing.
I don't know.
I
This
have
is crazy.
I have Christian people that are my friends who or we're acquaintances, we're not enemies, who post on Facebook, and I've seen their posts, and they talk about how, hey, look, I agree, and I'm pro-life, but I think people should have the right to choose because there's some really life is messy and there's messy situations. Yeah, but there's no messy situation where the solution is kill a child. Okay? I don't have a mess, I don't make a mess of my life and say, oh, okay, well, the answer is killing a child. I think that's probably the best thing. I really made a mess of my life. I got on drugs and robbed a bank and, whatever. So I think I can fix all of it by killing a child. Killing children is not the answer. Ever. I'm sorry, I vented. Let's let him.
There's no abortion argument that isn't wildly inconsistent. That's just all there is to it. Wildly inconsistent. You have to, at one point, say this is okay, and then 5 seconds later you have to say it's not.
For an abortionist to successfully argue their case, like with any logic at all, they're going to have to show that it is not a human life in the womb, and or that if it is a human life, that it is not a valuable human life. Can you imagine? Like, that is the thing. It's not a value. Now, you can't show it's not a human life. There's no scientific or even biblical, if you want to go that route, argument for that. So you just can't do that. So the default now is to show that it's not a valuable human life. Like, really?
And then you go to eugenics. That's eugenics, right?
That's exactly what Hitler believed.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, the blacks are human lives, but they're not valuable human lives. The Jews are human lives, but they're not really valuable human lives. It'll be better for humanity if they don't exist. And this is exactly what's happening with. By the way, have you seen 180 movie? This is just way off topic. Have you seen it by Ray Comfort?
I have not seen. You know what? I've seen parts of it. I believe this
It's an
was
amazing
a couple
film.
years back. Yeah.
You go to 180movie.com. I think it's still the website. This was years ago, but it does a great job of this. Let me digress for a second. No, that's what I've just done. Let's go ahead and play this.
Babies that are being targeted for abortions. And so I should be for this. I should be for the pro-life movement because it's saving black babies from being aborted.
Technically, you should just be for the pro-life movement because it's saving babies from being killed, whether they're black or not. But especially the fact that they're inordinately black. I mean, that that should be another thing to
The
consider.
things you're hearing are correct. You're absolutely right.
Well, I want to say that's a myth. The truth is that abortion follows poverty. That poverty is the number one most clear indicator of abortion rates in America. Wherever you have high poverty rates, you will also have high abortion rates. So I was amazed when I was living in New York City and people would point to me. I mean, people of color, pastors of color will say, well, what about East New York? East New York has the highest abortion rates. That is evidence that they are targeting babies in East New York. We need to stop this. No, do your homework. If you look at East New York, it has the highest poverty rate in New York City. And so therefore, it also has the highest abortion rates. Now, what does that tell you about the choices people are making? They are actually making economic choices about how much they can handle. And that is based on the reality that services for poor families have been cut by the very same people who want to outlaw abortion. Hello, somebody. Yeah.
Hello. You don't come to a scenario where you say, I'm too poor, gotta kill a child. Like, that's not okay. No. And what she's doing here also is she's making the fallacy of correlation and causation. Just because there's a correlation between the community that is black and the community that is poor, that means that it is the poorness that causes the abortion, and that there's no targeting of black of race there. When the whole founding of Planned Parenthood was all about targeting races and going to that neighborhood, and so the fact that they're poor may have some causation, but it's all we know from what she's presented is correlation, not causation. Jonathan's hacking up a lung over there. We can't hear you, actually, Jonathan. Are you back on now? No, we can't hear you. There you go. He muted himself. I appreciate that.
Just a little remaining COVID, perhaps.
If you need a second to take a drink of water, go for it. I've got plenty of things to say. I think he was just throwing up a little in his mouth after what we just heard.
Could be. That was pretty awful. But I think it returns to what we had said before, right? There's no consistency. That she doesn't actually address the killing of a baby. She tries to make it about finances. Okay, maybe that's probably true. There's a higher abortion rate among poverty-stricken families. That's fine. I mean, how does that strengthen your argument? How does it strengthen it? You're killing a baby because you can't afford it. Okay, we go back to you do get to decide whether to have sex or not. Even if you don't, even if it's a rape, which I don't know if there's any evidence to say that rape happens more among poverty-stricken families or not. It doesn't really matter. What matters is it's a life. It's a human being. Address the issue. Stop getting us into the weeds. That's all that is. That's the only thing that they have, because when it comes down to it, they can't just say outright it's okay to kill a human life because I want to.
Yeah,
there's just no defense for it.
There's been multiple studies about this too, as far as the factual nature of this. This is just one of those studies, so we can't be sure that this is exactly accurate. But this is a more recent study here on the reasons for abortion. You can see here on this list that 92.33% of respondents said there was no reason or it was elective. None of the provided reasons why they had an abortion. Here were the provided reasons. 6% women aborted for social or economic reasons. So that's 6% because they didn't have enough money. And then, of course, it's even less for things like there was actual a serious fetal abnormality, like they were expected to be mentally challenged in some way, autistic, Down syndrome, something like that. The woman's psychological health was only was less than 1%. The woman's physical health threatened by the pregnancy, less than 1%. The woman was raped, less than 10% of 1%. The woman's life was endangered by pregnancy, again, less than 10% of 1%. And the pregnancy resulted from incest, that's less than 1% of 1% of cases.
That's 1/100th of a percent.
Yeah, 1/100th of a percent. Yeah. I'm trying to put this in terms that non-mathematical people can understand, like myself. The point is that when you add all these up, you have more than 90% of just couldn't give a reason. It was just they didn't want to have a child right now. They didn't want to have to deal with the toll it took on their bodies. They didn't want to have to deal with raising a child. They didn't want to have to deal with the responsibility. And less than 10% of people had any of these reasons. So when you say, well, no, it's poverty. Abortion follows poverty. No, it doesn't. Like that is not actually accurate based on actual numbers. But even if it was, that wouldn't justify abortion.
Right. And what I want to focus on with that graphic is, you hear, I was watching the Pennsylvania primary debate a couple weeks ago, and the only question they asked about abortion was, do you support exceptions in case of rape, incest, and life of the mother? You notice how if you add all the percentages up of those three questions, you get barely over 0.1%.
Yeah.
You're massively distracting from the issue at hand if that's the question you ask. There's differences between physical health of the mother and the life of the mother, sure. But these questions all go away when you just admit that this is another human life. Okay? Was it conceived by rape? Yes, but it's a human life, so then it doesn't matter. Was it because of incest? Yes, but it's a human life, so it doesn't matter. Is the mother's life at risk? Yes, but this is a human life. So you try to save both lives, right? You do what you can. You treat this as a human life. This is not hard. This is very simple.
Yeah. Now,
it's one of the simplest issues you'll deal with.
As we said before, you treat this like a human life, meaning if there is a father, whether it's a father figure or just a biological father who needs to be put to death for rape, if there's a father, he is required. There is something required of him, right? He can't just get out of here, right? So yes, but we're not saying okay, let's leave, let's tax a woman with it. Nobody argues for that. Nobody does. And there are so many programs and so many people who help. So listen, you go to any church and say, listen, I got to abort this child. I can't afford it. I guarantee you. I mean, if it's any kind of good kind of church, they're going to say, no, I will take care of your child. I will pay for whatever. I don't care. I'll do it personally. I don't know anyone who attends my church who wouldn't jump up and scream and yell, don't murder your child. I'll take it. I'll help you. I'll do whatever you need. I'll do. As a matter of fact, I actually have women in my church who have done exactly that. We actually have one unmarried single mom in the church who was advised to abort her child. Of course, she wouldn't do it. She never even considered it. But my wife and I, jumped at the opportunity to help her through the pregnancy. At the end, we watched the child, asking nothing in return, so that she could go to work and provide. This is what Christian people do. If you're in a bind, if you're in a financial bind, then you need a support group, right? You need a church. You should be in a church that's willing to help you if you got into that situation. Now, obviously, you should be, you shouldn't be like, oh, okay, the option here is either I can't provide for the child or I murder the child, because there's so many other choices besides even just a church support group. But just being in a good church is going to fix this problem for you.
Right.
That pretty simple.
Yeah, and it doesn't mitigate the responsibility that you have. Like we saw on the chart, the vast majority of these are just people that made a decision, and they don't want to take responsibility for that decision.
Here's the thing: life is filled with responsibilities that you don't want. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to go to work every day. I've got to make money. Even if I didn't have a family, I would still have to support myself. I don't want that responsibility. I don't want it, but I have it. Okay, I have to do it, right? This is what life is. And
Yeah, and just
raising a child is
just
the most rewarding responsibility you'll ever have. The most rewarding thing you will ever do in your entire life. I don't care if you're a mom or a dad. The most rewarding thing you will ever do is raising a child.
I totally agree. I mean, I'm a dad too, but I mean, reducing a child to just a responsibility is another horrible thing to say. I mean, it's a kid. I mean, just the idea that murdering children is somehow not wrong just blows me away. How do you make that argument? You just can't. This is so wrong on so many levels.
Here's a wonderful piece of work. Leila Cohan, I think I'm pronouncing her name right. Leila Cohan said this: if it was about babies, we'd have excellent and free universal maternal care. You wouldn't be charged a cent to give birth, no matter how complicated your delivery was. If it was about babies, we'd have months and months of parental leave for everyone. If it was about babies, we'd have free lactation consultants, free diapers, free formula. If it was about babies, we'd have free and excellent childcare for newborns on. If it was about babies, we'd have universal preschool and pre-K and guaranteed after-school placements. Can you even follow that logic? We don't want babies to be killed, so we are bad unless we also want everything about the development of a child to be free.
Yeah, it's just we're once again displacing the responsibility. The only one apparently who doesn't have responsibility here are the ones who make the decision to do the act in the first place. What is going on? This is pathetic. This is a horrible argument. There are such bad arguments against, the pro-life position, and what? This is outrageous. This is insane.
Let's break this down too. I want to break this down. We got just a few minutes, and I'm going to pause on this because let me pull this back up here. Okay, all right, listen to this. If it was about babies, we'd have, watch this word free. We'd have excellent and free universal maternal care.
Okay, so now it's the government's responsibility.
But hold on a second. The word free means something. It means there is no cost, right? But the problem is when maternal care, giving birth, like doctors attending to you while you're giving birth, babies, parental leave, costs, all of these things cost somebody something, right? Parental leave is going to means you're getting paid while you're not working. So it's going to cost your company something.
It's the job's responsibility.
Diapers, somebody made those diapers. There's product cost. There's, that costs somebody something. Formula costs somebody something, right? All of this stuff costs somebody something. What you're saying is it shouldn't cost a mother anything. You're not saying it should be free because it can't be free. It's actually work that someone has to do, and it costs them something, right? So what you're not saying is that it should be free, although you want it to sound that way, because everyone wants it to be free. Like, sure, if it didn't cost anything to anyone, that'd be a wonderful thing. Just give it away for free. But it does cost people things. What you're asking is that other people pay for it. And I say other people are absolutely willing to pay for it. If you're in the situation where you cannot do it yourself, where you cannot take care of your child, other people are more than happy, and we have government programs for that, right? Not only government programs, we have church programs, we have individual private people who will 100% stand up and take care of the child or help you with this stuff, 100%.
Right, and to not get too far into the weeds, even if they weren't, you don't kill a baby because of it. I mean, come on. Let's be real about this. Yes, it shouldn't have to be anybody else's responsibility but yours. Yes, there's other things you can do. There's other help you can get. But even if there wasn't, you don't kill babies because you don't have help, because you don't have the money, you don't kill babies. That's not the default answer, and it seems to be for all these people.
I love
You
the
don't do
balance
it.
we've struck here,
Stop killing them.
because what we've kind of just shown, and I appreciate you, Jonathan, for bringing it back to that, because we've just shown that there isn't a level of any of these arguments on any level where they make sense.
Right.
But of course, the obvious one is you're killing a child, a living human being, and it doesn't really matter X, Y, or Z argument, because it's killing a human child. You don't kill human children. This is not okay, and it should never be legal. I don't know. Do we have time for? Let's squeeze this in. This is terrible to squeeze in, Jonathan, because you gave me another great meme here. Maybe we'll just tease it and do it again. Do it again later.
This came across my Facebook feed, and like I said before, there's a lot of bad arguments on the other side. This is probably one of the worst that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, and that's saying something. We bring the whole religion thing in. And again, I've never seen anybody on the pro-life side start with, hey, it's a religious thing, so you can't do this. So there's a massive straw man. But with the first three things here talk about, it's illegal. It's against, Jewish law to eat pork. But they don't force that on us. We're allowed to eat pork, so it's against Christian religion to abort a child, which of course it is, because it's a moral judgment. Well, yes, it's a moral judgment. What I love is after this stuff is made, there's a kind of a paragraph there, and then at the very end, there's a sentence that says moral judgments are not legal judgments. That's laughable. There is not a single law that is not a moral judgment. Not a single one. If you want to say that there shouldn't be any laws that are not moral judgments, you must legalize all murder. You must legalize all rape. You must legalize all theft. You must legalize everything, because every single one of those is a moral judgment. You can't get around that. That's a pathetic argument.
I would say there is a different. Right, okay, so I would slightly disagree with you there, but not in a substantial way. So I would say that there are some laws that aren't moral judgments, like which side of the road do we drive on? The right side or the left side? Well, we have to have a rule. It's not immoral to have the rule the opposite. We just have to have a rule, right? So there are some things that are just procedural. However, you're right. Every major moral issue does have to be enforced by the government in a major way, right? We're not talking about which church you go to. We're talking about like whether you murder children. And with that, we've got to go. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time on Point of View.